Desert Oracle Radio, the voice of the desert.
Night has fallen on the desert. Strange times in the old Bear Republic, the state of California, where I happened to be out by the 29 Palms Marine Corps base when the news of the rumored deployment hit the Morongo Basin. Very exciting. In a place that doesn't make the news too much. I'm close enough to the base to see the eerie flare drops on moonless nights now and then. Sometimes I'll be out walking on a summer night in these little mountains, the Little San Bernardino Mountains being the official name for these charming desert foothills. And I'll spot a couple of the flares and get myself in a good position to watch them drop and light up, making these bright constellation patterns low in the twilight sky. And beneath them, there are hundreds or maybe thousands of Marines engaged in wild war games with tanks and dust clouds and air cover and combat ground troops, just crazy stuff. The dust rising in columns and columns in the light, the rough terrain and the dry lake bed, the confusion of radio chatter, the madness and excitement. From around this Desert Marine Corps base on this early summer night, I heard the same rumors we all did out here of troop carriers, buses, full of Marines with full kit ready to go. And deeply annoyed to be called back early on a Saturday night. I heard that from Oceanside, too. Well, that's when I got to know the Marines a little bit, the Marine Corps. I was a newspaper reporter, for a couple of decades, a long time. And the newspaper where I worked the longest was the old Blade Citizen, formerly the Evening Blade Tribune, the powerful daily paper in Oceanside, California. And the whole coastal North County, the north part of San Diego County. Your beat was your assigned subject matter, City Hall or high school sports or the school district or the Oceanside Police Department. And one of my beats at the Daily Blade Citizen circa 1990 was Camp Pendleton. I was on that base all the time. I did features on lonely Marine wives. I did a Christmas story about lonely Marine wives. Another story on lonely Marine wives during the Marine Corps deployment to Saudi Arabia for the first U.S.-Iraq war. And at some point, they gave me the plum position of City Hall San Diego County politics reporter, along with my talented and tenacious comrade, Bobby Joe Lee. And then the Iraq War starts, the nerve of that Colin Powell, right after I was done with the beat. Of course, I wanted to go. I'm a young romantic reporter at the time, but I have to wait my turn because my successor on the Camp Pendleton beat, my friend Phil Deal, had first dibs, obviously, on the Saudi in bed trip. So he went. But I got set up to go on the next round the next hometown press flight to Saudi, got my travel vaccinations and the crazy full-page Saudi press visa with the gold foil and etc. And then George Bush Sr. and Norman Schwarzkopf, Storm and Norman, decided to turn back and end the war just like that. At least that's what we were told. Goodbye, Baghdad. Goodbye before we got there. People back home in the States hardly had a minute to plan the protest and the burning of various things. It was that fast. It all went by so fast, it was like a dream, a bad dream for some people, certainly people on the receiving end of the U.S. coalition's arms. It went by so fast that within a year or so, the American public had mostly forgotten about it, and they forgot that they supported it, and they forgot that they supported the president at the time, President George H.W. Bush. And so by 1992, that election in November, he was out of there. And I was out of Oceanside by then. I was in Central Europe. I believe I was working in Prague at that point. So I did not go to Saudi Arabia. Not yet, anyway. I do plan to go someday, possibly with some sort of esoteric caravan. With camels, to the moon festival somewhere in the Arabian desert. The secret thing. The last mystery. But that's not for public disclosure. From what little I know about it, I know I am not supposed to mention it at all.
Desert Oracle Radio.
Because of the civil unrest in Los Angeles County this month, and Paramount and Compton and etc., the rumor was that the Marines were shipping out or busing out from both 29 Palms and Camp Pendleton to back the National Guard, which was sent in response to a very long weekend of provocative behavior, you could say. And these rumors turned out to be true. I was far away from Southern California when those pictures started coming out. I love when the pictures of an event come out because everybody rushes online onto social media to make sure to describe the pictures or anything really that ever happens according to their personal politics. In this way, you're never surprised by anyone because you know their personal politics because they never shut up about it. I was less concerned with various online spectators and their personal political views than I was by the look of the protesters. I watched the video of that guy on a hot dirt bike. Number 77 was its race number. The guy who was driving around in circles around a burning car at an intersection off the 110, I believe. And that guy was wearing all new, brand new clothes. You can see the creases in the pants. You can see the Nikes are brand new, the soles without stain or scuff. It looks like he's wearing body armor too, if you remember the picture I'm talking about. One of those ultralight bulletproof vests. And there's what seems to be an obvious holster on his left hip. His face is covered by a mask. His head is covered by an anonymous blue ball cap. He rides in circles around the burning car in the middle of the intersection of Atlantic Avenue and East Alondra Boulevard in Compton, which is right off the 710. Well, that's Dale's Donuts in the background of the videos and pictures of the masked man riding a dirt bike in circles around the burning sedan. And he's also competently brandishing a flagpole with a fairly large Mexican flag waving majestically behind him as the great column of black smoke pours out of the burning car. Afterwards, everyone poses for pictures like family portraits. And there's a long line of LAPD patrol cars parked behind them, beneath the giant donut. It's like a clip from The Simpsons. It's too much. Well, everybody online seemed to want a historic wave of urban riots. And I don't think that's generally good for anyone. It took until early this century for a lot of the city blocks that burned in the 1960s to ever come back at all, and some never did. Some were all but abandoned once the fires were put out, or maybe a few years later. The great cities of America bombed and burned from within. Very strange. And some parts of LA County never came back after the Rodney King riots. Although many living in Silver Lake and Echo Park today have no memory, no idea that the great wave of fire and violence from those 1992 riots crashed right up to Sunset Boulevard and occasionally over it. Those 1992 riots in the Los Angeles area ended up having a large impact way out here in the high desert. 3 hours away by car, if you're lucky. Maybe 5 hours on a Friday afternoon when the weather's good, which it is now and then, 2 or 3 times a year up here. The population boom, such as it was in Yucca Valley, which is very apparent from the age of the housing stock, was in large part caused by the civil unrest, by the fires, by the burning, by the natural disasters such as the Northridge quake, and then the recession, the peace dividend from the USSR collapsing. All of that sent a wave of early retirees to a place that back then was cheap, relatively cheap, and felt like it was very safe from the routine nightmares visited upon LA, the city of courts. You're listening to Desert Oracle Radio with Soundscapes by RedBlueBlackSilver. And I am Ken Lane, host, and what else? The other things. And you can hear us on Friday nights in the high desert on Joshua Tree Zone Z107.7 FM, KCDZ in the Morongo Basin. And there's a podcast too. Oh, and we're on YouTube now too, if you like to look at a computer screen while the podcast plays. Some people like that. As for the various troubles in the cities, it's all sort of academic to me these past decades out on the desert. Yes, even in Joshua Tree, they roll out a few seniors for the local protest every couple of weekends, which is fine. It's good to get outside and talk to people now and then. But for the most part, beyond the rare event like buses full of Marines departing 29 Palms, there's little evidence, which I guess is true in most of the cities, too. I've been in New York when huge protests were happening, international headline news. But go to the museums on the Upper East Side along Central Park and you'd never know. You'd never know within the quiet gardens of the cloisters or dining outside in Nolita, or in the financial district towers where fortunes are made and lost from our grossest national product, which is debt. Everybody's in debt, every organization, every individual in one way or another. There are billionaires with more debt than they have assets. And there are millennials in debt for charging their burrito bowl lunch deliveries. It gets us all these days. But one day not too far in the future, I hear the whistle blowing. I hear the Jubilee train a-rolling. Or maybe that's just the sirens. A listener from San Diego writes, Dear Desert Oracle, I was walking along the beach at La Jolla Shores in April, and I thought I saw you in a kayak. But I wasn't sure, and you were just rowing out. If that was you, hello. I went to one of your shows in San Diego at the Whistle Stop Bar. And the postcard is signed Olivia, which is a pretty name from the Latin for olive tree. A dignified and beautiful tree and the economic engine of ancient Greece. Anyway, thanks for the postcard, Olivia, and yes, I love to take a sea kayak out whenever I can. Even though I've lived in the desert for much of my life, mostly in a desert without even a creek with enough water for a rowboat or inner tube now and then, the truth is there's nothing as physically and emotionally satisfying to me as rowing upon the sea. Rivers are good, lakes are alright. But to be on the sea, on the seashore with the pelicans and the salt breeze, when given a choice and when the geography works out, that's my pick. I haven't done it often enough. It's never been a daily routine beyond a few vacations. But whenever is possible, I get in a kayak, whatever kind. Launching and landing, that's my favorite. But the whole thing activates a glorious ancient feeling, rowing onto the beach, the people scattering and screaming, the sudden enormous waves breaking on the sand. A confusion of mist and chaos and squawking seagulls. It was rough out there. It was rough launching, it was rough coming in. That was 2 months ago now, it's been too long. Early spring, oh, remember that? There was a full moon in the afternoon, very aggressive tides, strange winds. Just getting into the water was wonderfully violent. I was soaked by the breakers before we even got out. The usually calm La Jolla Cove waters were wine dark and wild. Dolphins were cresting and pelicans skim the growing swells. It was too early to see those Arizonans leaping off the cliffs into the cove like in summertime. And there was a marine research ship bobbing out there in the protected marine life preserve, sampling the red tide and the Mexican sewage and the toxic runoff from the Pacific Palisades and Altadena fires. And there were a couple of tour groups out there headed for the La Jolla Sea Caves, but prohibited from entering. You can't go in the caves in such heavy weather. The waves will smash you right up against the cave walls, the cave ceilings. And then you're nothing but food for the crabs, shredded to bits. Well, maybe that's my final retirement, if such a thing ever arrives. Not shredded to bits to feed the crabs, not right away at least. But on some rocky little isle, maybe a half-mile offshore, protecting the ruins of the Templar Keep, the secret temple, is a job, a duty, until you die. The little island is some special protectorate under the law of the sea, ancient contracts, the sacred text of the Nine, so that if anyone shows up trying to get into the old stone tower, well, they too will become food for the crabs. Nobody gets inside or beneath without explicit invitation. Some days the seas are just too rough to get around in a little kayak. The fresh provisions will last the week, it's fine. There's enough to last for months if necessary, dry goods, all the fish you can catch. Drinking water comes from the rain barrels because it rains plenty out here on the secret island. But if you want the delicious things, the comforts of the world, fresh food, wine and whiskey, a copy of the newspaper. Well, you've got to row to the village, half a nautical mile of open sea to the inlet, and then you follow that for another mile, ideally with the tides in your favor. Have an early dinner at the village pub, so you're back on the island before nightfall. Rowing back with a grilled trout and a half carafe of red blend, soothing your belly and cheering your soul. You pass the last of the fishing boats coming in. Old Mr. Lewis with his pipe and his wool cap, he looks like his picture should be on a box of fish sticks. You wave, he nods. From Amboy to Zizix and across the vast Mojave wilderness, this is Desert Oracle Radio. Now, you've heard the soundscapes on this program are by RedBlueBlackSilver, and it's the truth. You can look him up on Bandcamp, and you can buy his digital releases. I think you can get like 10 albums for $25 or something last time I looked. Our website is desertoracle.com, and the Patreon page is patreon.com/desertoracle. Thanks much to those of you who send a little money this way in support of the show. Now, I was on the road the last couple of weeks, and I did not manage to get an episode written and produced before I left. And then I had various misadventures and wound up racing back to deal with some ultimately meaningless minor problems, a continuing crisis. But then, my biggest Joshua tree was toppled by the wind on a very hot and windy day. But I'm still sort of in shock. So it goes. Good night from the voice of the desert.